Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about how black tea, whether in the form of iced tea or afternoon tea, princess parties and whatnot, it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the beauty of Camellia sinensis. Now, before we begin, if you haven't done so already, please come visit us at the tea store. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell and share this with others and post a comment if you like. So many of you know, either because you've been watching the 150 episodes we have here, or just on your own reading, that black tea is the most popular tea in the West. I would not say it's the most popular tea in the world, but it's the most popular tea in the West. And you can really attribute this to the shenanigans or the tomfoolery of the East India Company in the 1840s to the 1880s. We have a 4-part series here on that. I'll make sure I put a banner up here for that. But it was really important for England to get the market on tea. And so getting it out of China into one of their dominions, India, and then later Ceylon and Kenya, made it cheaper and more available for the English market, and therefore its colonies like America. And so you saw that, and then with the rise of afternoon teas and the fancy teas and what we would call today the tea parties with the scones, the cucumber sandwiches and whatnot, this is kind of our patrimony or our heritage, is that we got these things. Also, iced tea, even though iced tea, you can trace that back to ancient times in China, what we would perceive to be iced tea really stems out of Lipton tea. Lipton was a guy who really made a lot of money in Ceylon, for present-day Sri Lanka. And it really wasn't until, you could say, the kind of mass commodization of tea with tea bags and whatnot that you really saw iced tea taking off, whether in the form of black tea, southern tea. There's a lot of different varieties of tea, but really it was only in the last 60 years that you really see iced tea being very popular. So when people think of tea, like if you did a Family Feud style, like what are top 4 things you associate with tea? It's going to be these things, right? Iced tea, tea parties, and maybe effeminate or girly. We've talked about how this is another prejudice that you see in the West, that men, a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men see drinking hot tea as effeminate. And so I would say this, look, whatever gets you in the door to Camellia sinensis is great, but we just don't want to stay at the door. And there's a couple reasons. That black tea is great. Camellia sinensis, I would argue, along with well-made, homemade green juices, are the healthiest beverages on the planet. We've established in past episodes how tea is healthier than coffee. All the benefits coffee has, tea has, and more, and less of the adverse effects that you would find in the Arabica or Robusta beans. So black tea has its benefits, but really it's not where we would want to stay. It's what brings you in. It's certainly what Americans feel more comfortable with. I see this at the tea store. People are going to buy Earl Grey or Indian chai or one of our blends like Monk's Blend or Lifestyle Sai Chong or whatever it is, because that's what they know, right? They know black tea. That's what they've been drinking. Those are the tea bags that they have at home, or that's what their mom or their grandma or grandpa have been drinking a long time. Or they have the association with afternoon tea or tea parties, high tea, whatever. It's not really high tea, but afternoon tea, tea parties, and this kind of thing. And that's great, but we can't stay there. Why can't we stay there? Because black tea is like chocolate ice cream in that it's so good and delectable, but there's better ice creams. And really that'd be a bad example. Maybe it's more like ground meat. Black tea is like ground meat. It's good, it'll get you there, but it's not filet mignon. Black tea has one of the lowest levels of antioxidants out of all the 5 other categories that come from Camellia sinensis. And that's one reason maybe we don't want to drink too much of it. Also, black tea, most people don't drink black tea unsweetened. Yeah, there are going to be people who like iced tea unsweetened. Our cold brews, we do have a Ceylon silver tipped black that is unsweetened. But the majority of people who drink black tea are going to be drinking it super iced tea with sugared up, or they're going to be drinking it with milk and sugar. So ideally though, the milk and the sugar is problematic, especially the sugar. But we want to jump in black if that is our landing point, but we want to move to the left. And so if you look at the 6 categories of tea, left is going to be toward the 0% oxidized. Black tea is 100% oxidized. We talked about on the episode exactly what is black tea. I'll put a banner up here. But we want to move to greens and whites because greens and whites are the healthiest. And so though we might not have a palate for black, we want to slowly work our way over. And this has kind of been a reoccurring theme we've talked about in the last 3-4 episodes. We do want to work our way to black. And we want to work our way to green, I should say, because green is the healthiest. And even though maybe you don't have a palate for it, develop a palate for it. We've developed palates for a lot of things that we didn't like 20, 30 years ago. High percentage dark chocolate's really healthy. I didn't like it when I was 25. And there's a lot of things you can think about that maybe you didn't eat when you were 20 or drink when you were 20, but now you do because of health. So we want to gravitate that way. And even though in the West, iced tea and black tea is pretty much 75% of what most people think about when they think of tea. Most people don't know it comes from Camellia sinensis, but what they think of tea, that's in the West. If you go to the Orient, if you go to South Asia, if you go to Kenya, Malawi, and Sri Lanka, and Russia, and all these places, Turkey, that just habitual tea drinkers, when you ask them what they think about green tea, they're not necessarily going to think of black. They're going to think of other categories. So in closing, these things are great. Black tea is great, but we really need to see this as a landing point. And part of it is just education, tea education. This is why we do the classes. This is why we have the YouTube channel, is to educate yourself that black tea is the landing point for a lot of people here in the West. And that's great because at least it's bringing awareness to Camellia sinensis. But ideally, we want to move and get to the super, super healthy categories of tea, the ones that have a lot more antioxidants, the catechins, and plus they have a lot of theanine and whatnot. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless.